The following program is brought to you by PodcastOne Sportsnet.
The NFL, NBA, NHL, and both college football and college basketball are all firing on all cylinders, so this is the best time to take advantage of the betting action. This is where our friends at betonline.ag have got you covered. Create a free account on betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne to receive a 50% sign-up bonus. And take advantage of their Refer a Friend program, where you can give a 200% bonus to your friend, up to $200. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and the exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're going to take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is Steve Austin, Unleashed.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the main streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm sitting here at 316 Gimmick Street, sitting here at my desk. Got my laptop computer going. Got a big-ass aquamarine neon clock behind me. Man, I get happy every time I look at that damn clock. I got a great podcast for you today. We're going to finish my part 2 discussion with Duke the Dumpster Droese. And I enjoyed the first half of this podcast, but the second half is when he really kicks in with a lot of information, a lot of the struggles that he went through, and a lot of the advice that he will drop on anybody that's suffering from addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, pills, this, that, whatever, man. Duke has been around the horn, literally. I went around a little bit of the horn with him, and like he says, I always had the governor switch. But Duke was very candid in his discussion, a very open and honest guy. He helps addicts every single day of his life. He is a recovering addict. He works on that every single day of his life, as you will hear in the podcast. It was great to catch up with my old buddy, and I think you're going to enjoy part 2 of my conversation with him. And as I sit there and record this open, got a great podcast coming for you here, I think next week. Sick Nick Mondo is on his way to 316 Gimmick Street. I'm looking forward to talking to him. Becky Lynch just sent me a text message. I'll be talking to her. I believe I'm talking to her tomorrow. Kane's coming on the show. Ron Funch's stand-up comedian's coming on the show. There's one other person coming on the show. Hell, I can't remember. I got so many things lined up over here. But enjoy the show. Again, thanks to Duke Droese for being so open in this show. And folks, there's a very important announcement in the close of the show. So if you're one of those people that just listens to the podcast, hits the stop button, make sure you listen to the close of the show. Very special announcement coming after my interview with Duke the Dumpster Droese. Anyway, that's enough of me flapping my gums. This is my conversation with Duke the Dumpster Droese, my old buddy from the WWF days. Another huge week in NFL and NBA with some very exciting matchups with the Chargers versus the Chiefs and the Lakers versus the Rockets. Our friends at betonline.ag are the main destination for all the action. And don't forget, it's the holiday season, and betonline.ag is in the giving spirit with 2 incredible promotions. Create a free account on betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne to receive a 50% sign-up bonus. And take advantage of their Refer a Friend program, where you can give a 200% bonus to your friend, up to $200. Whether you're into all the sports happening now or you enjoy taking odds on the Oscars, betonline.ag is the only place to get in on the excitement. Go online or use your mobile phone to sign up today. And try in-game live betting, where you can participate with all the action with every play. When you're there, use promo code PodcastOne. That's PodcastOne to receive a 50% sign-up bonus and get your holiday shopping done early with their Refer a Friend promotion. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. All right, I want to give a big shout-out to my man Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. He was just on the podcast, and I had a blast talking to him. I've been doing my regular workouts just like we talked about with the DDP Yoga Now app for a long time, and I'm feeling awesome, and I'm feeling the change, and it's all for the better. I am more limber, more loose than ever before, and I feel fantastic. DDP Yoga can work for all ages, all weights, all fitness levels. If it'll work for my ass, it'll work for your ass. It's a kick-ass cardio workout that will dramatically increase your flexibility flexibility and strengthen your core like never before, all with minimal joint impact. Just for listeners of the Steve Austin Show and just in time for the holiday season, DDPY is offering its biggest discount ever with 30% off all DDPY workouts and the DDP Yoga Now app. And to boot, you will still get 3 months free on the app with any DVD program purchase or 7 days free on any app subscription. DDPY's huge holiday sale is the perfect chance to get started with the program before the new year. This offer is only available at ddpyoga.com/Austin.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
I got a question for you. Can I ask you a question? You brought up a good point. You brought up a good point. Something that I thought. Talking about getting dropped on your head. I remember that match vividly. I was actually home sitting on the couch watching it on TV, and I remember seeing it, and I was like, holy shit, he's fucked up. It's going to be strange, but I always wanted to ask you this question. I know you were not happy about it. You were pissed off. And, of course, later the situation with Owen that happened, the accident and him losing his life.
Kansas City.
What was in your head? What were you thinking the night they had the tribute, and you went out and you toasted him? You went up and got up on the turnbuckle. Was there any kind of strange, like, mixed emotions or anything like that? I know it's a strange question, but I often thought, I was like, this was a good dude, but it's also the guy that dropped him on his head. What is he thinking? What was going through your head at that point?
No, dude, that was 3-4 years removed. I was angry initially, because I got dropped on my head. I'm sitting at the house and my anterior delts are just on fire. It was just because of the nerves, and then finally that kind of subsided into an itch, and then it finally disappeared. Yeah. And I'm still hyper sensitive, from my waist down, hyper reflexive, I should say. And so I still got some neurological things from that. But going out, to answer your question, going out that night. No, dude, that was a strange night because that St. Louis crowd, the accident happened in Kemper Arena in Kansas City, and then we're at the Kill Center in St. Louis for Monday Night Raw. And it was weird. The thing that was weird about it, because there were some people that were going to wrestle some matches, and I think it was completely voluntary. Dude, nobody wanted to work because of what had just happened to Owen. When he fell, I was in the back part of the dressing room because I was working with Undertaker that night. We were sitting there talking about the match. All of a sudden, here comes the word, dude. He had just fell, and someone said, "Hey, man, Owen's dead." And we're like, "What?" You get the first thing what the boys say. Are you ribbing? That's what. Sure enough, man, he was gone. So, dude, this is at the pay-per-view. So Vince, he's the man. He makes the call. The show must go on. So we did the show. I don't remember what Undertaker and I did in that match. If it was a good match, a bad match, whatever. I don't remember the match. And then you go home, you're processing. Well, we're on the road, but you go back to your hotel room, you're processing everything. And hey, regardless of whether he dropped me on my head or not, I still liked the guy. I didn't think he was as funny as he used to be, but shit, I didn't hate him. He was Owen. You couldn't hate Owen.
No, you couldn't.
And everybody loved him because, we'd be walking through the damn airport, dead dog tired, and he would just say something or do something outlandish just to pop everybody.
With the
Everybody
straightest look on
loved
his
him.
face.
Oh, yeah. So he was, and like you said, a non-drinker, no pills, no nothing. He was an absolute saint of a husband on the road. Yeah. And so going back to St. Louis, go out there, and they said, "Hey, Steve, here's what we'd like you to do. Go out and do a toast." And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. But the thing about going back to I keep hesitating. The thing that was so discombobulating about that night, Duke, was the crowd reaction. They were obviously many, very, very sad that someone had been killed the night before, but many of them there wanted to see a wrestling show full of all the bells and whistles and the stuff like that. So there was kind of some mixed reactions out there. Sure, everybody was sad that Owen had died, but they also had anticipated or expected to get the razzle-dazzle Monday Night Raw, Raw is War show. And so it was kind of a weird deal going on with the vibe of that crowd. And I'm not saying there were 18,000 people who were inconsiderate or insensitive. It was a mixed feeling. And so, like, when I went out there and did my thing, it was just like, with about as much respect as I could do, went out there and said whatever I said kind of to myself. There wasn't no mic. I just went out there and left the beers for him. It should have went out there with water because, Owen would have never drank a beer. But there was no animosity, dude. It was just a weird, eerie feeling because, dude, you just lost one of your brothers. And when you're in the business, or like, hell, it could have been a bunch of guys working on the highway patrol. When you're in your inner circle and one of your buds goes down like that, you never wish that on nobody. So I just thought it was a weird night in general.
I got you. Well, there's another question I want to ask you, unrelated. I'm going to ask you this question and see if you remember this. Because I think I asked you a while back, but I can't remember if you remembered this or not. But when we would ride up and down the roads, changing gears here, I'm taking over your podcast in case you don't realize it. We would ride up and down the roads. We drink that natural light beer because we were still poor then. Nobody was making money. And we'd take a couple of Wapals, which is what we called those hydros then. And we'd be talking about the most outlandish fucking ideas and shit that we would come up with. If we pitched half of that shit.
When your back's against the wall or you run out of, it's almost like when I was trying to come up with my name. And they sent me 3 fax pages of just the biggest dog shit you'd ever heard of in your life. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm thinking, man, these are the creative geniuses? Really? Samson St. Clair. I mean, fuck. Rocco Gibraltar. You're trying to come out with anything that will strike some resonate with them at some level so that give you a fucking push. That's the thing, going back to what you were saying on the last podcast, and trying to get over. I mean, there's more things that actually have to happen than just someone being good in the ring. One of the things that interests me, let me take you back, because you used to roll with Fit Finley before the matches even started because you wanted to add some wrestling to your repertoire. Here's the thing I'm asking you. You didn't use a scientific wrestling style as Duke the Dumpster Droese. So, I'm sitting there thinking as I'm watching you talk about rolling with Fit, and I'm like, well, if he's going to bring technical skills into this dumpster gimmick, the garbage guy gimmick, is that really going to work? Because he probably needs to be more of a brawler. But this was you and your hunger and quest to try to get over, to gain, more knowledge and more ring generalmanship, I guess. Does that make
exactly
sense?
What it was. Yes, trying to gain more knowledge, not necessarily trying to become Duke the Dumpster, the technical wrestler, but having an understanding of using that style of wrestling, being able to use that style of wrestling to take that crowd on that roller coaster ride that you talk about. You look at guys like yourself, like Bret Hart, even Shawn Michaels. You look at people like that, you guys can wrestle with anybody, with any style. And to have that ability goes a long way, in my opinion, in getting you over. Okay? And that's probably the biggest reason I sat up under that learning tree with Fit Finley, because I recognized the value at that time of having a much broader knowledge of different styles and different types of things that you could do in the ring to get over. That's why I did it. I didn't necessarily want to be, Duke the Dumpster Droese, the technical wrestler from Mount Trashmore University, All-American, trying to chain wrestle people in a wrestling match. No, that's not what the plan was. I was just trying to learn more. And that brings up another good point that you're talking about, getting over. Vince saying what he said to you, I hope he gets over. I look back, during the time when I was pissed off and bitter and resentful, and I look at other guys who have come up short, perhaps, in this business and end up being angry and bitter and resentful and blaming other people, other wrestlers, blaming promoters and things like that for them not getting over. And it took me a long time to realize this, but the reality is, at some point, you got to be able to stand up, take the initiative, and get yourself over. There are ways to do it. There are ways to raise your own stock in the wrestling business, but you got to learn how to do it. and you got to learn how to do it the right way. And that's kind of what I think Vince was getting at when he said, I hope he gets over. But to a certain extent, I mean, a lot of it's in your hands as the talent. Yes, they can push you. Yes, they can put you on a freaking bus and drive you around and give you an express and all that shit. But what it comes down to, the reality, you got to have hits. You got to be able to get over. You got to figure out a way to raise your stock, and you got to get over with the crowd. Unfortunately for me, I didn't learn that until after I left the WWF. So, in that respect, I was just a little behind the eight ball once again. But that was something I had to kind of figure out and come to terms with, was the fact that for a long time I was angry at people, and I blamed them for me not getting over. When in fact, I could have been a lot more proactive in getting myself over and doing what I needed to do to raise my stock. So that was a very important lesson.
Like you said, you've got to navigate those waters, and you're playing chess. You're not playing checkers, so you need to go about the right protocol, the right process. And that doesn't mean walk on eggshells and say, "Oh yes, sir," and all that bullshit. I'm talking about doing your due diligence, studying, because I don't think there's ever been a promoter, whether it was in wrestling, boxing, or whatever, that didn't want a talent to come into their territory and get over and make them both money. Specifically the promoter money. So the promoter wants everybody to get over. So he's going to give you an opportunity. All opportunities come in different fashions. And then going back to you're trying to be a technician, and just as far as being more of a ring general by working with fit rather so than applying scientific wrestling to the character of Duke of Dumpster Droese would be like when I was trying to follow the footsteps of Ric Flair, who I consider to be the greatest world champion of all time and my favorite professional wrestler. I was trying to emulate him as Stunning Steve. And then when I came to WWF, I just come through ECW, cut a couple of scathing promos, which, is me just kind of being on fire with the help of Paul Heyman guiding me to a laser. And then so I get into the WWE as a ringmaster. Okay. I come up with that ain't worth a shit. So I go through the process. At least I had the wherewithal to pull the plug on it. And then, drink some GHB and watch a damn special on Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, and pitch that to the office. So now I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I'm still a scientific wrestler. Okay, I get dropped on my head. We just had a conversation about Owen Hart. I get dropped on my head. I'm down for 3 or 4 months while this bruise on my spinal cord heals up. I don't need to be fused up yet. The doctor wasn't even going to clear me to get back into the ring because he thought the business was a shoot. He thought I had to get pile drived every night. I finally had to smarten this guy up. This is one of the leading, spinal, scientists in the United States at the time, Dr. Joseph Torg out of Philadelphia. And I finally went to I flew all over the country talking to specialists. And finally, I told Doc, I damn near had to smarten him up to the business. I said, listen, Doc,
it's a work.
I said, I ain't got to get dropped on my head every night. And he kind of goes, you don't? I'm like, no. I said, I can control anything that I want in the ring. He goes, well, if that's the case, then I'll clear you. Dude, that's how I got cleared. But going back, here's the point I want to make. When I went back, it changed my physical work style because then I had become more of a brawler than a scientific guy. So my brawling style combined with the Stone Cold gimmick, that's what got me over to the main event level when down in WCW, I was a pretty good mechanic. I could work with anybody. I probably wasn't going to draw, but, 5 or 10 people to the show. On my end of whatever I was carrying on the card, I wasn't drawing nothing, but all the boys knew I could go, but I wasn't a star. And, me and Brian Pillman put together the Hollywood Blondes. That was a pretty good 1-2 combo for as long as it lasted. But once I changed that work style, because I was forced to, along with the gimmick, bam, finally, after fucking 7.5, 8 years in the making, I was an overnight sensation. But it was going through the process and changing. And, dude, I didn't ask to be dropped on my head. It was an accident. But that was one of the things, changing the style. We're all over the place with this podcast, but that's what helped me get over. So when I watch some of the talent today, and let's talk about today's wrestling, I know you're not too much in tune with everything, but sometimes when I'm watching some of these new cats come out of the school, everybody wants to do the kicks. They want to wear the kick pads. Wrestling is, man, it's like the athletes are so good these days. The talent is, it's not always about being a great wrestler. It's being a unique personality or a unique wrestler that has a different skill set, more so than just someone that can tumble their ass off.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I sort of chuckled when you brought up the kick pads. I remember when I first came in to the dumpster, I wore kick pads because my pants were a little bit too short, and they would run up my legs. And I just remember Scott Hall going, "Bro, my garbage man doesn't wear kick pads." He made fun of me mercilessly about my kick pads. To your point, absolutely, and it is such a, I guess it's more controlled now in terms of they take them from point A to the end of the road of where they want them to be. Back in the day that seemed like you call it the Wild West days, there was a lot of us different characters coming from different parts of the country and different parts of the world that learned and had different experiences from different places, and we all brought our own different kind of brand of what wrestling was to the game at that time. Whereas I think now it being so much more of a controlled atmosphere where they bring these kids up through the ranks and control it every step of the way. I think that's what you see more and more of now. And that, of course, and controlling everything they do and everything they say, I guess. And this is just what I hear. I mean, of course, I'm not there. I don't know how they do things, but more script workers, I guess, for lack of a better explanation. Things are controlled and written out for them and planned. And yeah, it's whatever style, I guess, is seemingly popular at a certain time. Like now you hear a lot of people talk about strong style, right? Well, I guess that's kind of the thing. People come out of the schools and the developmental territories with that type of a style. And yeah, like I think the points you're making with there's a lot less individuality in what you're seeing, I think, with today's, I hate to use this word, product. You hear people use the word product. Talking about the product, the fans use that word so much, but that is what you see more of. There's a lot, there's not so many individuals and different styles of guys that came from all over the world in different places that bring their own style to things. It's everybody's learned from basically a same core group of people, and that's just my opinion. I mean,
but I think you're hitting upon something, and I don't want to sound like two girls with veterans, because I love all the guys and girls in the ring that are doing what they're doing. But yeah, man, it's not about being. You want to be a part of the team, but it's like, I don't know how big of a UFC fan you are, but I'll never forget when Conor McGregor cut the promo. He goes, he was talking about this big following from Ireland. He goes, "We're not here to take part. We're here to take over." And I was like, genius. So, I mean, that's the mentality you need if you're going to get into the business of pro wrestling. Yeah, you want to be a part of it, but god dang, you want to be the guy or the girl. And that's the mentality you got to have. You have to be an individual. When you brought up that story about Scott Hall, those guys, a lot of those guys from Minnesota, or he's from Florida. I always get him from. My point is, Scott Hall is so smart about the business, and I know as a part of the clique, they probably rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I came in at the back end of the clique, But if you ever got a chance, or if you get a chance these days and you talk to Scott Hall, when you talk about minds for the business, Jake the Snake Roberts always jumps out there with a mind for the business, but the same with Scott Hall. He notices, and just from a psychological level, so many different levels and all these different things just when, and I've only had a few one-on-one conversations with him, but that dude is so smart about the business. I'll never forget when I came up with the Stone Cold Steve Austin gimmick. I had pitched it to the office. We unceremoniously started kind of weaving in that Stone Cold Steve Austin name. And he comes up to me with that, that sarcasm, the way he approaches you, he's kind of like always in razor mode when he's in, at the building. And he goes, Stone Cold, huh? He just walks off. He just walked up to me and just smoked me. I was like, Jesus Christ, I ain't got a snowball's chance in hell. Fucking Razor just fucking shot me down, laughing at my gimmick, basically. So anyway, it turned out, but he was a very smart guy in the business. And when you look back at that guy, look at the changes that he made from his AWA days. When I remember him as Big Scott Hall, this handlebar mustache, built like a Greek god. And then I
wrestled him as Big Scott Hall.
Oh, dude, and Scott was a hell of a hand.
In Florida. That time I told you about I went up there with the guy Jimmy Young, and we had those stupid hoods on. We wrestled in a 6-man tag match. It was me and my buddy and this guy Sam Bass versus Big Scott Hall, Ron Simmons, and Brady Boone. And the hilarious thing about it is, years later, I'd be working in the World Wrestling Federation with Scott Hall, and I talked to him about it, and he kind of looked at me funny, and he wasn't sure. Dude, he went home, and he found the tape. He had the tape of that match, and he watched it. He goes, dude, I can tell that was you. You were a skinny kid, but you moved exactly the same. I was like, yeah, I was 19 years old, 20 years old. But yeah, Big Scott Hall, with the handlebar mustache, absolutely. And definitely a great mind for the business. There's nothing in this world like sitting in the back and doing monitor time with Scott Hall. Sitting there watching the monitor of what's going on in the ring and listening to his take on what's happening. Because half of it he's making fun of people, but then the other half is just pure, straight up wrestling business knowledge. He would say something like, why did that guy do this? And then he would go and he would explain why that didn't make sense in terms of the psychology of the match. I would sit there and listen to this guy talk. And he is definitely one of the great minds in this business, no doubt.
Here's two things. The only other guy that I would put at the same level as being the monitor, the sellout monitor guy that everybody would crowd around and listen to him, or he'd be the only one speaking. Scott Hall was good at it. Arn Anderson down in WCW was the ace as well. Whether it was sarcasm, dry wit, he was the king of just nailing people. I'll never forget. I was working with the Flying Brian Pillman as the Hollywood Blondes. I used to be a big fan of Jimmy Anvil Neidhart and Bret Hart as a tag team, and they used to always send a guy and give him a double drop kick. And so me and Brian went in there. We was double teaming the guy. Sent him in. I made the call. I said, double drop kick. Dude, Brian hit the guy in the head. I hit him in about his knee. When I came back, Arn Anderson blistered me for 5 minutes nonstop. And dude, that was, I think, 3 or 4 years into my wrestling career. I never, ever threw another drop kick after being blistered by Arn Anderson. So I can only imagine what he was saying when he was watching the monitor. And my other observation is, with respect to Scott Hall, being Big Scott Hall, this good-looking guy with a great physique, great athlete. He could chain wrestle, he could brawl, he could do it all. But where would he have ended up had there never been a movie called Scarface?
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's just like, that's a version of me getting dropped on my head. He changed his style. All of a sudden, this guy has this guy he can imitate, and he's got this look. He greases the hair. He's got the toothpick from the diamond stud days. He's got this good look, money.
Yeah, didn't he say Vince wanted him to be a big cowboy or something when he came in? And he said, well, I like that idea, Vince, but how about this? And he threw down to say hello to the bad guy gimmick from Scarface, and that just changed the whole course of everything for him. I remember hearing him say, I don't know if it was a cowboy gimmick, but Vince had something like many times, like Ringmaster or any other gimmicks, that sometimes you sit down and they give you an idea and you're just kind of thinking, man, but, you're afraid to say, you would be afraid to say no to it. And this goes back to what we were talking about, being smart to the business and how to do things. And Scott Hall always said this, and I've heard you say it too, is always have another idea locked and loaded, or 2 or 3 or 4 ideas to counter. Because if you don't like their idea and you don't have anything else, where are you going to go with it? And you're going to end up doing that stupid idea that they give you that you don't like. And then if you end up doing that, you're not going to buy it. The crowd ain't going to buy it. It's going to suck. And I think that was one of those instances with Scott where he went in and I don't think he was too keen on whatever the idea they had for him was. And he had that Scarface gimmick locked and loaded. And Vince loved it. And the rest was history.
And I believe at the time, Vince hadn't even seen the movie Scarface yet, so he didn't know what it was. He just knew that he liked it.
Yep. Yep.
And here's the thing. I know it's been on record because Triple H was doing an interview one time. This is from years ago, and it's a shoot, and it's the truth, and he wasn't knocking me. But back in the day when I was stone cold and I was running hot, dude, I showed up for work early every time. I stayed late and I worked hurt. I was a motherfucker, but I was a handful too now. And if I showed up at TV, and if I didn't like something, I said, I ain't fucking doing that. Well, you got any ideas? Nope. He goes, Steve would just say no and walk out of the room, which cause a lot of frustration because you've got a guy who's on fire, and if I don't like something, I just say, fuck it, I ain't doing it. Well, you got another idea? Nope. I'd leave it up to them come up with a different idea. But you know what? I wasn't trying to be an ass. I was trying to protect my character. And Hunter was shooting when he said that. I would do that shit. I wouldn't do it every goddamn TV. But I mean, if I didn't like something, when I had the opportunity or the leverage to shit can something, I did. And I didn't always offer up an alternative solution. Many times I did, but just as many times I did not. I just finally got to a point in my career where I would draw the line, and that was the bottom line, no pun intended.
Well, that brings up a good question. Let me ask this. You asked me, with the way things turned out with my career and everything and the mistakes that I made, you asked me if I had regrets. Looking back on your career, you had an amazing career, obviously. Do you have any regrets with any of the ways that you did things at any certain times in your career, even how things went?
Yeah. I was really trying hard to always come up with a gimmick that would work. And Dutch Mantell gave me Steve Austin. He gave me Stunning Steve Austin, but I never knew what a character was. Tom Pritchard tried to smarten me up on a ride to Memphis one time, and I still didn't get it, So I could have worked on a character more from the beginning, like some people do. I picked up the one-on-ones, the mechanics pretty good. Psychologically, I got to where, for my style, I was as good as I needed to be. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair. I mean, those are guys who at a psychology level probably were a step ahead of me. But for my style, I was their equal. But as far as professionally, when I refused to do that favor for Brock, that was warranted, but I was a jackass. I got on an airplane and I flew my ass back to San Antonio because, Jim Ross called me the night before and smartened me up. And I was in a hotel room because I was wrestling Flair that night in Columbus, Georgia. Sunday night, we had Monday Night Raw the next day in Atlanta. He pitches me the idea while I'm taking a nap. And I said, if that's what we're going to do, I'm not going to be there. He goes, well, I'll tell Vince. Sure enough, he calls me back. He says, Vince says, call him after the matches, no matter what time it is. I go wrestle in Columbus, have a tremendous match with Ric Flair. I'm laughing my ass off. He's got razor blades. It's like wrestling Edward Scissorhands. I got cuts all over me. It's the greatest rib of all time. He's supposed to get color, and I'm bleeding more than him. So I finally get back to my hotel in Atlanta, and we got Raw the next day. So I call Vince. It's probably 2 a.m, and he goes, "I understand you don't really like creative." I said, "No, but you can tell it to me." And he tells it to me, and when he does, if you're looking at me face to face, Duke, I said, "So that's what we're doing, huh?" And he goes, "Yep." And I said, "Well, all right. Talk to you later." Well, that tone, if you can hear the tone, you probably know that I'm not really enamored with it. But I was saying, "Fuck you. I ain't going to be there," just like I told Jim Ross. And so there I was, Southwest Airlines, right back to San Antonio, Texas, drinking a Bloody Mary. My phone, the words got out on the street, my phone's ringing off the hook. I never answered the damn phone. That'd be the biggest thing I would change, was right there. Turning down a job wasn't the wrong thing. It was not showing up at the building, facing Vince McMahon face-to-face, resolving the problem, and moving on. So that was, from a professional standpoint, I always regretted that. And, of course, Brock is a very good friend of mine, and I have nothing but respect for him. So I would have loved to have worked with the kid. He's a man now, but back then he was just a young stud. So I would have loved to work with him and done big business with him, but that was not the time for him to go over me in a non-advertised match. That was not business. The other thing was kind of some of the things you and I were touching upon. I had that governor switch. I never went crazy with anything on the alcohol side, a little bit on the heavy side. Towards the end, just running hot, dude. I mean, I would have slowed down. I would have slowed down on the party stuff, and I would have taken better care of my body. I regret that, and I couldn't help myself from getting dropped on my head, so that was damage done. When you sign up to get in the business of pro wrestling, you know you're not signing up for, checkers. It's a rough-ass damn game, and I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about it. I always tell people, I said, man, that's the hardest job I ever had. Now, it's the funnest job I ever had, but like I said, or you said earlier, you're a rock star, you're a pro athlete, you're a truck driver, and all that shit, all the gravity, all the physics, all the bumps, all the bullshit, it all adds up and compounds just like interest, and you will feel, the other side of it once you're done. So I wish I would have ran a little bit slower, toned it down, and shit, dude. Other than that, I think I maintained it pretty good because I worked hard and I was always hungry. I always wanted to sell out arenas, but doing that job and taking better care of my body. I think the people that take care of the bodies. Hell, we used to ride with Diamond Dallas Page way back in the day. Page is one of my best friends, and that me, him, and Mick would be healing up a room. 3 of us. Yeah. Page would be on the cot or on the damn sleeping bag in the middle of the bed because he had less seniority. Although he was the oldest guy in the room, he was still the rookie. And that dude would be walking around the damn room naked with fucking ice bags on his knees, his elbows, his neck. He'd have his little zapper gimmicks. He was way ahead of the curve as far as taking care of your body. I wish I had took better care of myself from a physicality standpoint. I hit the gym every day. I was always doing cardio. I was a machine from that standpoint. But, dude, when you party and you're running hard, I would say that would be the things that I would change.
Interesting answer. I always wondered. Yep.
Alexa isn't the only one with breaking news. Make sure to hang around at the end of this podcast for the latest breaking headlines on the AP News Minute.
Have you checked out the big podcast with Shaq here at Podcast One? Yeah, we talk basketball, but we're a lot more than just sports.
I met this fabulous lady. She had to be in her 70s, knew everything about me, knew everything about sports. And the last thing she says, I love your podcast. And I was like, thank you very much. Oh, but I hate that John Kincaid.
That's terrible. Listen free to the big podcast with Shaq exclusively on Apple Podcasts, PodcastOne.com, and the Podcast One app. If you love the show, share it with a friend and leave us a rating and review.
Steve Austin, Unleash.
Why did it take so long for you to get clean? Because you got cleaned up after 1 or 2 trips to rehab. You was clean for about 9 years, and you fell off. Why?
Yeah, it was. Well, when I came up from Miami, Florida, my family brought me up and put me in rehab the first time. That was right at the beginning of 2003. Man, came up in December, and I remember there was a big snowstorm in Tennessee. But anyway, I got clean, and I was really pissed off at where I had let myself go to. And I'd gotten so far down, I had nothing. I mean, I had no money, no house, no car, no nothing. I came to Tennessee with the shirt, literally the shirt on my back. After I got clean, I got physically clean. The people in rehab tell you, you need to go to meetings. You need to go to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. You need to go to these support groups. And in my head, you know, and this is the old tough guy, wrestler, athlete mentality. Okay, I'm physically clean. Now I'm going to get my fucking life back in order on my own. I'm going to get my shit back together. And what I did is I focused on getting my life back. I went back to college and got a master's degree in education. Became a school teacher here in Tennessee. And I made it was probably more like 7.5 years, I'd say. 7.5 years clean. And they call that white knuckling it. You know, I was clean, but I didn't have what they call recovery. See, I was able to stay clean, but I wasn't learning how to live life without drugs. And there's a big difference there, which I had to learn the hard way. Anyway, what ended up happening is I was a teacher, but I was also a football coach, an assistant coach. I ran the weight room. And I would try to teach the kids how to train and all those things, you know, strength and conditioning coach. And one day me and another coach decided we were going to show these kids how to do it. So we started training. And man, I started getting strong, like fast. I started getting strong and shape, and I was showing them how to do it. Well, you know, the wrestling business, I still had a bunch of injuries and stuff. And one by one, slowly but surely, these injuries started to poke their head up again and show themselves and come out. And what happened was I had a foot injury. My left foot was injured from wrestling because for years I wore those stupid high-tech Magnums when I was wrestling through the dumpster with no support, and I twisted my ankles like 100 times before I finally smartened up and got a real pair of boots. But anyway, that injury came back on me, and here I am squatting 400, 450 pounds with a busted foot, and it collapsed. Well, at that moment, and I remember exactly where I was sitting right in front of the tricep pushdown machine, and I asked a friend of mine, can you get me some painkillers? And we were like, well, let me see what I can do. Well, at that night, somebody found me 5 Percocets. Within 2 days, I had 2 full bottles, 90 pills, hydrocodone from 2 different doctors. You know, I jokingly always tell people that professional wrestlers invented doctor shopping. I knew exactly what I needed to go and where and how to get it, and I did. And I was off to the races again. So I started back where I left off. I started taking all these pills again. The foot was really damaged. I tried to ignore it. I went to the doctor. He said they needed to do surgery, but I held off because I wanted to do more pills. So I kept going to doctors and getting more pills instead of trying to get it fixed. By the time I tried to get it fixed, it was a lot worse. A ton of metal and screws and plates, and they had to rebuild the whole foot. And I was still really heavy on the drugs, so I really didn't follow directions. And I was supposed to be laid up for like 3 months or 6 months and not putting any weight on it. And I was up walking around like the very next week, running around out there looking for drugs and stuff. And so anyway, long story short, the foot fell apart again, had another surgery, got infected, ended up having to have the foot amputated, okay? By that point, I was an IV drug user. I was shooting morphine. So the long way around answering your question, what I learned from that process, because I ended up getting arrested. And by getting arrested, I realized the game was over. I couldn't take drugs anymore. And I had to do whatever it was going to take to get clean and to understand what recovery was, not just staying clean. So the difference, when I got physically clean, went to rehab the second time, as soon as I got out, I started going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings every single night of the week for a year straight, every single night. And you sit in those rooms, you listen to people, you talk, you share what's going on with you, and you learn how to live life without being on drugs. There's a big difference between just staying clean and learning how to live life. And ultimately, that's what I had to learn. And I had to learn it the hard way, man. I got 2 felonies on my record. But I'm still alive. I learned the lesson. And that's what it took for me to get clean. And now, hopefully, knock on wood, stay clean. Working with people like I do now also helps me. I see people at all different stages of addiction. I interview people at the jail that want to get in our program. I work for this drug court program now. I work with people all the way through and try to teach them how to live life without having to use drugs. And that's what it took for me to get clean and do it the right way. I had to learn it the hard way, but I think I've got it this time. So I'm going to continue to hold on to that.
But the main addiction was at first to the hydros?
Yeah, it started with painkillers, Vicodins actually, like you said, and then the hydrocodones because they had less of the acetaminophen in them, like less of the Tylenol. Because when you get to the point, I remember hearing, and I don't ever like to talk about how much and that I get, but I remember hearing Kurt Angle coming out and saying he took 60 pills a day at one point. That is very much true. And I was in the exact same spot. And it was 3 times a day, 20 pills. Take 10, boom, knock them down. Take 10 more, boom, knock them down. Chase it with some chocolate donuts and have a good old time. And you do that 3 times a day. And then that becomes, and you think about it, the street cost back in those days was like $4 a pill. Now I don't even know what it is. But you go through money real fast. And you start to realize it's not conducive taking all those pills. And I remember vividly the day that I asked one of my drug buddies if he knew somebody that could teach us how to shoot up. And man, that was the beginning of the end. That was a whole different game. That shit takes your soul. And that's what happened. But yeah, when I got busted, I knew it was over. I knew I had to do whatever was necessary and to do it the right way and put in the work. And going to all those meetings was the key, man. Going to meetings, getting around other people that are going through the same shit and learning how to live life and deal with it. That's what I had to do.
Man, when you're taking all those pain pills, because I had my prescriptions, but, they weren't a thing for me. A couple here, a couple there, and, that was it. But I've heard all the stories. My question to you is, when you decide that you're going to start shooting, like you said you're shooting morphine, do you buy a bottle of morphine, or is it something you mix? How do you do that?
Okay.
I don't mean that to be a dumb question. I just don't get it.
No, it's not a dumb question. No, morphine they sell in pills. And it's just, well, it's not pure morphine. Obviously, it makes it something to turn it into a pill. But it's not like hydrocodone or Vicodin mixed with a bunch of, Tylenol or aspirin in it. It is mainly morphine. And what you do is, just like people cook up heroin, you put the pill in a spoon with a little bit of water, you cook it until it dissolves, you pull it up in an insulin needle through a filter, and you stick that shit in your vein and you shoot it up. One of the craziest things I've ever done in my life. And I did it for the better part of 3 years. Yeah, at least 2 years. Yeah, 2 solid years. Craziness.
Dude,
but yeah, that's how you do it.
The only times I've seen anybody shoot up has been in a movie on TV. And then sometimes people shoots up and then the dude or whatever, and they just kind of fall back. Almost like it puts them to sleep. So what do you do when you shoot up? I mean, do you go to sleep or all of a sudden are you charged up? Because I'm just watching shit on movies and stuff. What is the feeling that the shoot up does more so than just eating the pill? Because that's got to go through your liver and be processed, and now you just mainline it so it goes right in your system.
Yeah, and it hits you. It goes right in your bloodstream and into your brain. And it hits you. as far as like passing out, that tends to be a situation where you do a little too much and you could possibly be on the verge of overdosing. Basically people try to find that sweet spot where it's enough to get the feeling they want, but not to go overboard. But of course, addicts make mistakes all the time. But, it hits you, man. I always compare it to, I talk to people a lot now, addicts, about energy drinks and different products on the market. I'm sure you've done a pre-workout, right?
I'll drink a Diet Red Bull. Pre-workout things make me jittery. I will not take them.
Well, pre-workouts have a certain kind of tingly feeling they create. That's right. Part of what happens when you shoot up drugs. And then also that kind of an underlying kind of doped up feeling. But, that's the only thing I can compare it to. And a lot of the people I work with nowadays, I see them, they're like, is it okay if we take pre-workout? And they don't even work out. And I'm going, I know why you're doing it. And it's not smart. You're practicing bad habits. It's like drinking it. If you're an alcoholic and drinking O'Doul's, you're practicing bad habits. And at some point you're going to go, man, that feels pretty cool. But I know what would feel a lot better. And that's where people make mistakes. And, it's just that tends to be the feeling. But yeah, when it shoots right to your brain, man, and it's like any other drug. And this is a big part of addiction. It starts off, the first time you do it, it's crazy, insane, and amazing, and it feels great, and you never get that feeling again, and you're constantly chasing it. And that's addiction. The chase, the constant chase, and you never get that feeling again. And then on top of that, add to the fact that every morning you wake up dope sick, and you're in a panic because you have to find drugs just to feel normal. And dope sick and withdrawal symptoms, I always tell people, compare it to like the worst flu you could ever imagine, where you're puking and you have diarrhea and you're sweating and you're shaking and you're hot and you're cold and your whole body just fucking hurts. And multiply that by 100, and that's what withdrawals from opiates is like. And that puts the fear of God in addicts and makes them do all the crazy things they do in order to get drugs. You wake up in a panic if you don't have drugs at the ready, and usually you don't, because you try to go to bed and save some drugs for the next day, but any addict will tell you at some point you probably wake up and use them. And you wake up in a panic, you got to go on that search, man. You got to go on that chase and try to find what you need just to feel normal. And it's a miserable, miserable existence. I don't wish it.
How did you do that for 2 years? How did you do it? I mean, I know there's people that are still there, and I've been doing it longer, but how did you do that?
Well,
it's crazy.
I made decent money as a school teacher because I was tenured. I had been a teacher for a good solid 10 years, man. And I was pretty good on the pay scale as far as here in Middle Tennessee. And I was holding on to that job for dear life. That's one thing. But it got to the point where I wasn't paying any of my bills. I would get my check once a month, and it was it was a decent check for being a school teacher, and it would be gone in 2 days. So then you become part of this kind of underground group of people on the street that buy and sell. And what it is, there's a whole group of people, addicts and other people, and people that get prescriptions, and it becomes a situation where you or somebody knows about 6 or 7 or 10 people that get prescriptions from the doctor, and they know exactly when these people are getting those prescriptions, and they have it set up to where they get in touch a day or two before, and they express interest in buying the prescription from them, and they buy the prescription, and they dole out single pills for a lot more money. Anyway, it's just this whole subculture of people buying and selling prescriptions on the streets, and it still is what goes on now. That's why there's such a big drug problem in this country. People can go to the doctor and get anything, but a lot of times people aren't taking their medication. They're selling it because you can make a lot of money breaking the law and selling prescription pills, because you buy them and say you get it with your insurance and you pay $3 or $5, for your copay, and then you're selling them for $10 a pill. That's what people are doing. And then there's this whole group of drug addicts out there, like I was, that are more than willing to buy those pills. And you find the means and the ways to find the money to get it. That's what I was wrapped up in, man, for 2 years. Buying and selling and wheeling and dealing and knowing who was getting their pills when. I had a guy that he would sit in the parking lot outside the pharmacy because he knew certain days that certain people were going to come fill a prescription. I would come walking out with my prescription, and he would be standing there,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just this whole subculture of just people buying and selling pills, man, and you get wrapped up in it.
With all of your experience, and like I said, you were a smart cat when I was hanging around with you, and obviously you got your master's in college, and now being through everything that you've been through, when you have these people come through and they're talking to you, I would pretty well imagine you're like a human lie detector and you're very good at reading people. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Oh, absolutely. That's why they hire people like me. They call us peer recovery specialists or peer case managers, and the operative term obviously is peer, because we're working with our peers, people that are going through the same things that we went through. There are about 4 of us that work in this program that are graduates of the drug court program. And number one, yes, we are sympathetic to the struggles of drug addiction. But on the flip side, we see bullshit coming 10 miles away. We just had somebody in court today. I'm not going to go into details, but
right.
Man, it was the most outlandish, ridiculous excuse I've ever heard. And somebody gave them a drink of water, and they think they put something in it, and yes, we can see bullshit coming way down the road, and that's part of our job. Because unfortunately, in this line of work, and in rehabilitation in general, there's not a very high percentage, truly a high percentage success rate of people who don't go back out and use drugs. That's the reality, because not everybody's ready. A lot of people want to get out of jail, and they tell you, I want to change my life and get my kids back and all these things when they're sitting in the jailhouse and I'm interviewing them. But then they get out and the story changes. Not everybody is ready. See, when they came and arrested me, that was it. I was done. I was ready. I always tell people, this shit has got to get painful enough for you to really, truly want to change. And not everybody is ready necessarily on the first or second or 10th go round necessarily. I've seen people going in and out of the jail, man. It's like a revolving door, just because they're so caught up in the lifestyle. But yeah, to answer your question, that's a big part of the reason they hire us, because we see all the BS, the bullshit coming down the road, and we've heard all the excuses. I mean, because we've used a lot of the bullshit and we've pulled a lot of the tricks, so yeah, that's part of the reason they hire us.
When I'm driving around the streets of Los Angeles, I drive by this one place all the time, and it looks like it's a meeting place for Alcoholics Anonymous or drug rehab, whatever it is. Right. Every time I pass by there, everybody's smoking a cigarette and everybody's got a cup of coffee in their hands.
Yep.
So, do you have any vices like that?
I did when I first got clean. I drink coffee by the gallon, and I was smoking cigarettes too. It's funny, I would pick up the cigarette smoking habit every time I would start using drugs and drinking alcohol again. So, yeah, I was just like that. Interestingly, people in recovery, people that are trying to get clean and stay clean, like you talked about, we would kind of jumpstart ourselves in the morning. people that have been through the ringer and used drugs for a long time, and it takes a while for your brain to heal, and you don't just wake up. And you still have certain little addictions like nicotine, smoking the cigarettes, and I did have those. But about a year after I got clean, after I got busted and got clean, I was in the drug court program going through it myself, and I had about 6 months left. It's a 1.5-year program. I was a year in, and I was freaking morbidly obese, man. I was 400 pounds, eating a bunch of garbage. I was smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, and one day I realized, walking up steps and I can't breathe. This is fucking ridiculous. It's not just enough to be clean from drugs and alcohol. This is part of living life and improving your life. And I made the decision at that point to change and change the rest of the things that I needed to change. I got the drugs and stuff under control. I still work on it, but that was under control. So it was time to fix the other things. And smoking was a big one. And the diet and getting in shape, getting back in the gym, man, that had to kind of become a new obsession in a lot of ways. Because how we used to train, man. And I used to love it. And training with guys like you and freaking Bob Holly, man, back in those days, we used to train. And I was just laying around getting fatter, eating junk, smoking cigarettes, couldn't breathe, couldn't walk down the street. And it just had to change. So I remember I was actually in a group, and we were just talking, and one day I said, I'm sick of this shit. I got to change these things about myself because it's out of control. So that was when I did it. I had about 6 months left in this program, and I've been training ever since. That's the new healthy obsession. Cigarettes, I got rid of those. You're not going to change unless you're truly ready to change, and that goes with drugs or anything else. And people talk about how hard it is to quit cigarettes. And if you're truly ready and you're tired of it, they say sick and tired of being sick and tired, man, you're going to change. So you'll change. But you can't pussyfoot and tiptoe through it and say, well, maybe, or I need you. The things I always tell people is they say, I need to, or I hope so, or I want to. No, don't say that shit. You got to just do it. You got to make the decision and get to work. Don't tell me what you want to do, because that's just your excuse for not starting. And that's what I had to snap myself out of. Yeah, dude, that was huge. I couldn't believe how big I got. The biggest I got, I was wearing a size 48 jeans. 48. You know how big that is?
Yeah.
Good God.
Hey, man, at the place where you work at, like, what is the median age?
Well, it's all over the place, but I would say 20s, 30s, mid to late 20s to the mid 30s.
Dude, is there any? But are there? I can't imagine. I don't know. Shit, I can name some rock and roll people right off the top of my head. I say you can't be a 50 or 60 or 70-year-old heroin addict, but I guess you could be. Can you?
Yeah, you could be. It just depends on your life circumstances and what you can, get away with and afford. You get into a situation where, is the liver going to shut down? Your body going to start shutting down on you? Yeah, possibly. It just matters to what extent you're abusing drugs at those later ages. We tend to see more of the older people tend to be alcohol, DUI situations, more so than drug users. Drugs are the middle-aged, younger people, more so. A lot of methamphetamine, man. That shit's freaking rampant. It's ridiculous. How much methamphetamine?
That is everywhere, but Tennessee is high in that area.
Yeah,
as far as states.
And this was where I live. I live in Warren County, Tennessee, and at one point, this had one of the highest rates of meth labs that were being busted for a long period of time. But now there's been a changeover. People are not cooking meth, and they're not cooking dope anymore. It's being brought up from Mexico. It's being, shipped in by the cartels from Mexico. It's not being there's no like little mom and pop, meth labs. They're not around anymore. See, I work with, part of my job here in the drug court is we work with the police, the sheriff's department, I work with the district attorney, and I hear the statistics all the time, and people aren't making it themselves anymore because this country has made it so difficult to buy the components to make it. So yeah, they're just importing it from Mexico, basically, is what's happening. But that shit is everywhere, and it just destroys people. It just destroys people.
Man, I was watching a special. This is about 3, 4, 5 years ago. Some dude, he used to go undercover, and he does a lot of things on YouTube. I can't remember his name. He was down here in Tennessee, and he was with this girl, and she was an addict, and they went to this shack, and they made this stuff like a shake and bake. They got like a big bottle of 7-Up, or whatever, they emptied it out, and they put like a battery in there, and a bunch of household cleaning products, and he was wearing like something to cover his nose and mouth up or whatever. I mean, it was very caustic or toxic or whatever. She mixed up all the ingredients, poured it out on a tray. The shit dried. I don't know what the fuck it is, whether it's meth or speed or whatever, but have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Shake and bake is like a cheap way of doing it.
Exactly.
Cheap and very quick way of doing it, yeah.
Dude, that's crazy as shit. Here's one.
Yeah.
You're drug-free. You've been clean. Could you go out and have 3 drinks socially, or would that lead you on a downward spiral?
No, I cannot drink. I cannot do drugs. I cannot put anything in my body that changes my state of mind to that point. I can't. I've proven to myself over and over again, and I was a major alcoholic as well, because when I was running around doing all the drugs, it gets very expensive, and sometimes you run out of money. Sometimes the drugs run out, nobody has anything, and as a backup, you start chugging liquor, and I was drinking a lot. I would drink so much vodka that it would burn my esophagus to the point where it would start swelling and it was difficult for me to breathe. That's how much I was drinking. So, no, I can't. I cannot have a drink, because then, it's just like that time I said, my foot's hurt. Can you give me a couple of pills? And I remember this friend of mine said, "You sure?" He knew that I had a problem before. He goes, "You sure you'll be all right, though?" I said, "Yeah. Just I'll be cool, man. I'm good." If I start saying that, same thing with alcohol. I won't be cool. I won't be good, because eventually that'll make it okay for me to drink a little bit more. And then if that's okay, and it's okay for me to do something else. And this is the lesson I teach people every day. I teach a class called Relapse Prevention, how to get out there in the street and live without falling back and using drugs. Because people get through this program sometimes, and they have it in their head that I wasn't an alcoholic, I was a meth addict, so I can get out and have a beer. Or I can get out and smoke a little weed, because that never hurt me. That wasn't my problem. You see, those are famous last words. It's really an addict. If you start with one thing, that will slowly make it okay to do other things. In the true addict mentality, that's what will happen. And I've proven that to myself over and over again. So I don't need to do any more research, man. The answer to the question is no, I cannot have anything. I was just at this thing in Wisconsin, and the wrestling thing we just did, and they had an after party. A couple people were like, "Hey, man, why don't you come down? Hang out at the after party." No, I can't. I don't need to put myself in possibly dangerous situations for me. That's how I have to look at it. And that's why I've been successful to this point of not falling back and using drugs or alcohol, because I know what situations to not put myself in. I can't drink, man. I can't drink. I can't take pills. If I have a surgical procedure, they cannot put a prescription in my hand and have it be under my control because I can't control myself if I start taking them. I don't have that governor switch, man. I don't. And I know that.
Yeah.
And I don't try to fool myself because the minute I start thinking I have control, I'm done. I'll be right back out there again.
Shit, man. Unbelievable. I've always wondered this, just in my time these days when I think back about the business. Is it the boys in the business, or is it just the lifestyle that gets to the boys where, like, you know, there's been so many ODs and you went your way, I went my way and stopped. But what is it? Is it the way people are wired? I mean, specifically with the boys, just wrestling. Is it the personality? Is it the situation? What do you think it is?
It's a combination. There is something genetic behind it. I think the way that my brain chemistry works as compared to probably the way your brain chemistry works, there's a lot of differences. I think as far as wrestling goes, you know, you get in this business, you start taking bumps every night, you know, and I always tell people, man, this business is like being in a freaking car accident on a nightly basis. And if you don't have your wits about you and you let that constant pain get to where it eats at you, and you decide to start taking something for that on a regular basis, that's when the trouble begins. So that is part of the lifestyle. But yeah, there's something genetic about it. My brain chemistry is definitely different than, I hate to use the word a normal person's, but somebody that would not be predisposed to being an addict. It's different. I always kind of liken it to like being allergic, having an allergy. The way my brain responds and the way my pleasure centers in my brain respond to opiates, other types of narcotics, is different than most people, or at least people that are not addicts. An addict's mind, when they take something that changes their state of mind like that, their brain immediately goes into the mode where you have to have more. You have to have more. Get more. If you don't get more, we're going to make you feel bad. And that's what happens. Your brain and your body start to turn against you. You start to feel sick. You start to feel pain, more pain than you're actually really in. And it becomes this vicious cycle. You get more drugs, and it becomes more drugs. And it just becomes this big vicious cycle. That's the way I can put it. And it's definitely different. Sometimes it's hard to explain to somebody that is not a drug addict. They just don't have a concept of the inability to stop. They're like, why don't you just stop? That's not how it works with drug addicts. And a lot of people would argue against that, and they think it's just weakness. Man, it's not. You know, I consider myself a pretty strong individual, but, and like you said, reasonably intelligent. It has nothing to do with it, man. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, how much money you got, or what kind of family you come from. Man, addiction, you got that addictive gene in your brain, and you can't stop. So, and you need to learn that about yourself. Yeah, it's just, that was a very hard lesson I had to learn about myself in getting real with myself in the situation I was in. There was no more being fucking delusional about it and saying, well, maybe I could do this, or it just got bad that time, but it won't get that bad again. No, bullshit. I've proven to myself over and over, it will get that bad and worse every time. And that's where a lot of people die from overdose. People that are drug addicts, they use drugs to a certain level in their addiction, and they use a certain amount. They build up a tolerance and use a large amount of drugs. And then for whatever reason, they get clean. Whether they want to, they have to, they go to jail, they go to rehab, they get clean. And they stay clean for a certain amount of time. And then something happens, and they relapse. Well, often what will happen is when somebody relapse, they try to go back to that amount they were doing when they were in the thick of it, in the act of addiction. And that's where overdoses happen, because your body has been clean for a certain amount of time, sometimes months, sometimes years. And you go back, you say, well, I used to be able to hit 200 milligrams of morphine like nothing. And they'll shoot up 200 milligrams of morphine and they're dead, you know? That's what happens. And that's all part of it, man. It's the addictive cycle, relapse, overdosing, all of it. It's just it's an ugly game, man. It's an ugly game and a vicious cycle. So I gotta work on it every day. I gotta work on it every day, man, not falling back into it. I gotta maintain it every day. I cannot get complacent. I teach people every day in this drug club program. Complacency is one of the biggest killers of recovery. People always worry about falling back and using drugs again when things go wrong. I tell them no. Also, you need to worry about when things are going right. When you got that great job promotion and you're making all that money and your wife and kids are back with you and you got a new house and everything's going great, that's when people can become complacent. They let down their guard. They stop thinking about their recovery and maintaining and staying away from the addiction, and they make a mistake. I'll get off my soapbox now, but yeah, yeah, that's the deal, man. It's a daily thing, man.
I appreciate you sharing that with me.
No problem, brother.
That was unbelievable.
It was crazy.
You got a funny story we can end this thing on? That's some heavy duty stuff.
A funny story. I told this story. Okay, a lot of people have heard me tell this story. It's a Luna Vachon story, actually, and it's pretty funny. When I first started working for Vince in the World Wrestling Federation, one of the first tours I did was those small shit towns in Canada where you go, Nova Scotia, Halifax, St. John's, Moncton, Brunswick, that fucking loop. And
with all due respect to those towns, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, those shit towns. That was real nice of you to say. I love
no,
you.
You mean it in a respectful way. I mean, like the town I come from, it's a little shit town. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's just, okay, go ahead.
A shit loop of great small towns. Anyway, when I first broke in, I knew Luna from Florida. Luna and Dave Heath. And so I asked Luna if I could ride with her, and she was riding with the clowns, Doink and Dink. So here's the carload. It's in Ford Taurus. Me, Doink, Dink, and Luna Vachon. Now, those little Canada tours can wear on you, man. Some of the miles or the kilometers are very long, and you start getting tired, and people get on edge. And when you talk about people getting on edge, Luna Vachon, when she got on edge, she was a piece of work. So we were in the middle of this tour, and I think it was St. John's, and we were checking into this little motel, man, some little crap side of the road motel. And Luna was rooming by herself, and me and 3 clowns were, as you say, healing on a room. And as me and Ray Apollo, the doink at that time, were unloading our luggage, little Dink, Tiger Jackson, comes flying in the room, and he starts screaming to Ray, "Papa, Papa, Papa, Luna, she's killing a man." He used to call Ray Papa. So we were running out, and Luna is standing over this dude, spitting on him, screaming, going, "Motherfucker, don't you ever fucking ask me that question again." Apparently, this drunk guy had asked Luna for drugs, and she just fucking shot on him, put him down, and like I said, she was spitting on the guy. By the time we got out there, we cooled her down and got her back into the hotel, and this poor town drunk guy he didn't know what hit him. That was the beginning of probably one of the most interesting little tours I'd ever done. And there was another situation on the same tour with her where I had to get her out of jail because she beat up some college kids. She scaled out the back window of the hotel because the kids next door were making noise. Me and her were rooming together on this one. And she scaled across the back patio on a second-story hotel. and she went in their back door and smashed some kid in the head with a bottle. And and she came back over like nothing had happened. And she got back in her bed and she said, "Good night, Duke." And the next thing you know, this whole situation happens where, and I was laughing before when you talked about smartening up the doctor. I had to smarten up the cops this night because during the process, one of their drunk friends came to our door by accident and took a swing at me, joking around. And anyway, I was working with Bastion Booger on the store, and I had a big bruise on my arm from working him somehow. Anyway, the cops came, and they took Luna downtown, and I told the cops that this kid had attacked me and hit me, and I showed them this big-ass bruise. And so they took the kid down, too. So it was Luna and the kid going down for questioning, and all the rest of us had to drive down there. And when we got down there, the cops were trying to figure everything out. And, of course, this kid was drunk, so he didn't know if he hit me or not. Anyway, the final thing, the cops sat down and said, "Well, we think we're going to go ahead and release everybody, but I got one question for you. Are you sure you didn't get that bruise in one of your wrestling matches?" And I said, "Officer, don't you know that wrestling is fake?" And he just looked at me. He looked at me with this puzzled look. We got out of it, man. We got out of all charges. We got the fuck out of there. And I never rode with them again.
And man, I've heard some Luna stories, but she was always sweet as hell to me. I just loved her, and she's no longer with us, God rest her soul. But yeah. I mean, and I know she could probably be a little out there. Some people know her way better than I did, but man, you talk about if the shit goes down, you want Luna Vachon on your side.
Absolutely, yeah, big time. She was awesome.
Hey, dude. Man, it was a blast talking to you on the podcast. I'm going to plug all your social info on the first episode. Where can people find you on Twitter or anywhere you want them to find you or anything you want to say?
Well, I am on Twitter at Droese Mike because I didn't know how to change my name gimmick on there. So it just gave me my last name first name last. At Droese Mike. DROESEMIKE, that's Twitter, at Mike Droese on Instagram, and my private page on Facebook is Mike Droese, and I have a fan page now because I filled up my regular page, so it's Mike Duke Droese. Let's see, what else is going on? Oh, yeah, let me plug something else now that I'm here. I got an appearance this week at the Icons of Wrestling. That is right here. Saturday, December 8th, Icons of Wrestling at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm coming in with Connor Promotions. Stores open at 9 a.m. It's a meet and greet. Man, there's all kinds of people, dude. Edge, Gangrel, Pierre, Carl Ouellette, Tommy Dreamer, Bob Holly, Bully Ray, all kinds of people. And then, there's something I want to mention. I got a lot more than this, but way off in the next year, March 9th, in Morganton, North Carolina. AWC, one for the road. Coming out of retirement, Duke the Dumpster Droese in a triple threat hardcore match versus Big Country and greatest gimmick in the world, the hardcore brother, Blackest Jack at the National Guard Armory. A triple threat motherfucking hardcore match. Against Blackest Jack, greatest gimmick ever. in the history of the wrestling business. That's all my plugs, man. Listen, it's about time you had a quality guest on your show, by the way. I've been listening to you for like the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like, who the fuck have you had on your show? Brett the Hitman Hart? Brett the Hitman Hart? Never heard of her. Shawn Michaels? Mid-card fucking talent. Script worker. It's about time you had Duke the Dumpster Droese on your fucking podcast.
Well, dude, it took Devin Hannibal from Great North Wrestling to get me back in touch with your ass.
Out of the archive. Yeah.
God dang, man. But we're going to end the podcast by the time you hear this. But me and Duke stay in touch with each other. We call each other about once a week or text each other. I'm on my eating program. He's on his.
We both cheat and lie to each other.
Holding ourselves accountable. And we got to kayfabe the peanut butter and the chocolate, but other than that, I'm not drinking a half bottle of Jack. Sometimes, every now and then, I can hear somebody yelling for me, and it's some damn Reese's peanut butter cups. I don't know who invented those motherfuckers, but I sure like to shake his hand.
Yeah.
All right, let's give one more shout out to my man Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. DDP Yoga has transformed the lives of legends such as Mick Foley and Chris Jericho, who's still kicking ass at 47, as well as helping rehab injuries for WWE superstars like Bobby Fish, Drew McIntyre, and AJ Styles. DDP Yoga can work for all ages, all weights, all fitness levels. By using the DDP Yoga app each week, I can tell you there's a ton in there to keep you on track. DDP himself is there on the app to keep you focused on your goals and maps out the workouts you can do. The best part is how easy it makes keeping track of everything. All you got to do is just connect a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, and it logs all of your workout data and calories burned. Just for listeners of the Steve Austin Show and just in time for the holiday season, DDPY is offering its biggest discount ever with a 30% off of DDPY workouts and the DDP Yoga Now app. And remember, this offer is only available at ddpyoga.com/Austin. And check this out. DDP's upcoming book, Positively Unstoppable, The Art of Owning It, is now available for pre-order. Filled with lessons from Page's life that share his own struggle to find his calling, overcoming one obstacle after another, Positively Unstoppable is a Bible for anyone who needs to be re-inspired to follow their dreams and take real action towards the things that matter most to them. Positively Unstoppable will be released January 15, 2019, and is available for pre-order anywhere books are sold. And while we're giving shout-outs, let's give a big ups to TrueCar. With TrueCar, 60 seconds is all you will need to get an offer for your car. And the amount of time it takes to floss your teeth, pet your dog, or do a few sit-ups, you can get a True Cash offer. Best of all, you can do it from your smartphone or even from home. Just go to TrueCar and simply enter your license plate number and watch how your car's details pop up. Answer a few questions and you'll get an accurate True Cash offer from a local TrueCar certified dealer. It's that easy. After that, you can bring your car in and they'll check it out with you together. You can ask questions and get the answers you need, so there's no surprises. Then simply leave with your check or trade in your car for a whole new ride. So when you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar today. True Cash offer not available in all states. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. Before I do that, I want to thank once again my guest, my good friend Duke the Dumpster Droese, for coming on the show and sharing a lot of details about his life, trading some old stories, talk about some of the things we did. And Duke was very candid in this interview and offered up a lot of helpful information for those of you struggling with addiction, be it alcohol, pills, drugs, this, that, whatever. That's what Duke does now. He works with these people, and he's a good man. And I always enjoyed Duke. We become fast friends once we got together there in the WWF and had some great times together. So it's been a lot of fun reconnecting with him. And one of these days I'll run into his ass again in person, and I look forward to that day. So great talking with you, Duke. I'll be calling you on the phone next week to see how you're doing with your program. Hey, man, I told you guys at the beginning of the show on the open of the podcast that I wanted to make an announcement. So before I wrap up this podcast with my reads, here is that announcement. Starting in a couple of weeks, I think I have a few podcasts left for 2018. Here as I'm speaking in this microphone, sick Nick Mondo, Matthew Burns is coming by the crib, and we're going to record a podcast. Kane is scheduled to do the podcast. We're going to Skype. We'll talk about a lot of things, his WWF career, his wrestling school, a little bit of politics, not too much politics. Becky Lynch is coming by tomorrow. I'm going to do a podcast with her. Also, Ron Funches, stand-up comedian, is coming by next Monday, and we're going to lay down a podcast. And, of course, my good buddy, Ted Fowler 361, is going to come on the show one more time. Now, I don't know how many podcasts that is I just named off, but technically I was supposed to be through on December 31st, so we might roll one over. I'm not getting out of the podcast business. I'm not quitting the podcast business. Those are the guests that I have lined up that I will be doing in the next few days. I'm heading down to Texas to watch my niece graduate from college. She did it in 3 years. I'm proud of her. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, whatever months off from the podcast business. I'm just going to hit the reset button. I just want to take a step back, rethink the podcast, and then proceed again. So, again, I'm not quitting the podcast business. I want to rethink the show, hit the reset button, reboot, and start again. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, in the meantime, the Steve Austin Show ain't going nowhere. It's still going to be played Tuesday and Thursday, family friendly and unleashed. What we're going to do, my producer Sean is going to go through some of the old episodes, and these are some of the ones back in the day where they hid in the archives and went behind the paywall. We're breaking them out of the paywall, or wherever they were stored at. Nobody had access to them. And hell, I got probably damn near 600 episodes of the Steve Austin Show from the last 5 years, however long I've been doing this. So I'll still do my reads. We're going to play some of those old podcasts, and there's some good ones. So we'll be playing those every Tuesday, every Thursday. I'll be doing my reads. Sean will be straightening out the podcast and getting them in line. So the Steve Austin Show will still be airing. You'll just get a chance to hear some of those ones from way back in the day. And one of my first ones up on the Unleashed Show is going to be Steve Austin versus The Fly, because that was probably one of my favorite podcasts that I've ever done, and that was all done ad lib in one take. But nonetheless, to go back to my announcement, I'm taking a couple of months off. I'm going to clear my head. I'm going to go ride my four-wheelers. I'm going to go get on my mule and my Terex, and I'm going to go ride around, and I'm going to enjoy the great outdoors and take care of some business. And I'm looking forward to coming back. And when I do come back, probably reformat the show, rethink it, re-envision it, or just kind of just reboot. But the podcast is still going to be played every single Tuesday, every single Thursday. I am simply taking a break. Do not take me out of context. I do not like when people do that. I am taking a break. I am not retiring. The audio whoop-ass will continue, but I'm going to hit the reset button, and that's the bottom line. I'll try to keep it as short and as concise as I can. I'm thankful to all the guests that I've had on the show. For the next few shows, on the guests that I just mentioned, I will be reminding you that I'm taking a break so that everybody gets the heads up, because it always seems to be, a couple of months after the fact I drop some information, hey, all of a sudden Stone Cold or Steve Austin is quitting this or quitting that, or he ran down this. No, I ain't running down shit. I'm making an announcement as far as the podcast, and I'm putting it out now so that it's not a surprise when all of a sudden the podcasts start repeating and you get to hear some of the stuff in the archives that you've never heard before. Before I ride off into the sunset, I want to remind you that if you're thirsty and you love IPA beer, I have the best beer in the United States of America, Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. Find it at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in SoCal. If you ain't in SoCal, you're probably shit out of luck. And as the Christmas season approaches, if you need to buy somebody something badass that they will treasure for the rest of their life and use every day of their life, check out the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife, the Cold Steel Working Man's knife. 2 different price points, 2 high-quality, badass knives. You can find them at my Amazon store. Amazon has the best price on both knives. Just go to amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin. I want to say thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially BetOnline.ag, DDP Yoga, TrueCar, and Geico. I say I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. And if you need more info on my sponsors, check out the show description to this episode for details. Folks, I am on social media, Twitter and Instagram, at Steve Austin BSR. Folks, until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of Steve Austin Unleashed every Thursday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Before we ride off, a quick message from our friends at Geico. Go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today.